Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode one of my data security educational series. Today, we will be covering SITs or sensitive information types. For some background, I am a cloud security consultant. I've been working in data security now for up to 2 years, so I'm really familiar with the Purview tool, which is the main backbone of the technology and the topic that we're going to talk about today. The most important part of this series, guys, is that first of all, you're all very welcome, right? But the main thing is I hope that everyone learns something new. Okay, so the idea of these episodes, it's not just about informing you, about the technology, right? My goal of these sessions is that you can take away bits and pieces. Okay, I don't expect you to understand everything, but you also might understand everything, and you might find that they're a bit too high level. Okay, so they're designed for both a technical and also an operational audience. Okay, so we'll kick this off with a very brief presentation. I don't like to do death by presentation or death by PowerPoint. In this case, it's going to be death by Figma, or at least I hope not. So with that being said, the agenda. So we have the introduction, what is a SIT, why do they matter, and then we're going to do a little demo in a CDX environment. Okay, obviously not everyone will have access to a CDX environment. You can have your own tenant as well. There's lots of ways around it. I just find that CDX it's practical and it's nice for people to kind of explore around them because you have live dummy data. So I guess why understanding the foundation of what a SIT is and why it matters in data security. And really, when you're looking at more, I guess, in trend controls right now, when you're looking at DLP and labeling and just sort of most compliance controls, a lot of the time they do start with a classifier. Now, a classifier is the family in which a SIT lies. Okay, so we have our EDMs, which is our exact data matches. We have our trainable classifiers. We have our SITs, which are our sensitive information types. So they're a part of a wider family. However, how I would describe a SIT is I call it the MVC, or the minimal viable configuration. Okay, so we can talk about trainable classifiers, we can talk about EDMs and how amazing they are, and they are more advanced than the SIT, but with more advanced technology comes more time, comes more learning. And again, we don't want security to be, a blocker. We don't want security to slow down operations, and it becomes this really messy, project that everyone's like, oh, I'll do it next year. Okay, so SITs are a nice starting point for every organization, whether you're technical or whether you're operational, whether you're in sales. It's great to understand them, especially when you do have these security conversations. And especially with the era of AI right now, everything is about data security. So SITs are a really, really nice way to get you set up and also understand how most of your DLP controls may work, or how most of your auto labeling policies may work, right? A lot of them could have SITs in the backbone. And speaking of backbone, what is the actual thing holding it up? Well, SIT is it's pattern based logic. Okay, so the way I describe it, when we look at information types like credit cards, like IBANs, usernames and password, API keys, client secrets, right? They all have this repetition, right? And they have this pattern that people follow. So when we look at, let's say, people's behavior with sending credit cards or sending, a better example, maybe usernames and passwords. Okay, so often people go, hi, Sarah, my username is X, my password is Y. Hi, John, my ID is X, my login is Y. So people have different terminology, people have different language, but ultimately the PII is still being sent out. So where SIT comes in is that we recognize this pattern logic, okay, and we can build technology, we can build a SIT. It could be a regex, could be a keyword, can be a checkism validation or a function. There's lots of ways that we can identify how people are actually sending this information. And more importantly, when it comes to Purview, it can be the judge, the jury, the executioner. We can decide if we want to block people, if we want to add more advanced monitoring actions, if we want to set up an alert policy. We're really, really flexible, right? And that kind of leads into, we can use Purview to detect all of this sensitive information across your files and emails and chats. And I guess a nice way to, describe SITs, or what I tell customers, is that they essentially tell Purview what's sensitive. Okay, you're giving Purview a set of eyes into your estate, into your organization, right? And what's sensitive is going to vary for every customer. Right, it's going to vary for every department, right? What's sensitive for marketing is going to be sensitive for it isn't going to be sensitive for sales. It's not going to be sensitive for HR, right? So every different department and every different organization, they're all going to have different criteria for what they're looking to protect. Okay, and the brilliant thing about SITs is that Microsoft firstly have over 328, I believe, 27 maybe built in. to the Purview console, but we can build our own, right? We can build our own sits. We can decide what regex patterns we want to use, and that's really really nice, right? And again, I'll be showing us an example in the CDX environment of how granular we can get, right? And finally, why should we care? Well, again, kind of not to repeat what I just said, but they are the foundation of data protection, okay? Classifiers in general, but when we're looking at this example for SITs, right, without detection, right, without building it into our policies, right, they can't trigger, okay? And it's really important to note that, right? And you have to understand when you are looking at DLP and auto labeling, right, we have to understand what information we're looking to protect, right? And also with SITs, the more advanced you get, or if you know what you're doing and you start building, you start having more fun with them. The idea is that we reduce false positives, right? Or whatever information, whatever eyes we're giving Purview, whatever we're telling Purview is sensitive. Remember, Purview can still make mistakes. The idea is that we can refine it, get it better, get to a place where we're only getting true alerts, right? Or the security team, when they get an alert in Purview or they get a DLP alert, it's because people are actually dealing with really sensitive information, right? And it's not just some random alert that no one really cares about. But also going back to the minimal viable configuration, right? Sits out of all the classifiers, they are the easiest way to start, guys. Okay. So when you're talking to customers, whether you're technical, okay, and you're delivering this work to a customer, or even when you're just a customer trying to understand this, right? Sits are an amazing way to start with your data security journey. Okay. We'll be doing more episodes on trainable classifiers and EDMs, right? And how to build them and why they are really nice for massive organizations, because the bigger the organization, the more data that they have. But for now, let's focus on what we can do and what we can do very efficiently and very quickly, okay? So that being said, I'm going to move into my CDX environment. Again, I already have it open. It's already spun up. And I'm not going to build a sit essentially on this YouTube video, right? The reason I'm not going to do it is because that will be a 20 to 25 minute YouTube video. Again, this is educational, right? The idea is that it's very short. You understand what a sit is, but again, just to put some meat on the bones, right? When we're looking at a sit, we're in the CDX portal and the data loss prevention section here. There's over 328 sits, right, that are built into Microsoft Purview, and they have a lot. Okay, there is a lot of different criteria, different technologies behind each of these sits. Some are good, some are bad. Okay, I'm never going to, tell a customer something that isn't true, and neither should you. Okay, so it's important that we are building a sit or talking about technology, we do our research. Okay, the one I'm a big fan of, right, the out of the box one, or the one that Microsoft have built that I really like, is called user login credentials. Right, we can see here there's different variants and there's different levels, right? We have our entre user credentials as well, but user login credentials is a really nice one just to understand, right? Are people sending usernames and passwords in my organization? They are, right? A lot of IT teams will notice, especially when you are trying to talk to them and they're like, yeah, we know that people are doing it, but it's great to have evidence and it's great to have technology that's already set up for you guys, okay? And the brilliant thing about these sits is that if I go into any one of them, right? So again, I'll just bring up the full list and we just go to, let's just pick a random one, preferably one with a regex pattern. So we'll do a debit card number, right? And again, a regex, it's a way of identifying what string or what numbers we're looking to detect. And we can see here that this is using a function, which is fine, right? Works just as good as a regex. So it depends on your comfortability and how you want to configure each set. You can do a function, you can do a regex, you can do a keyword, but again, we'll talk about that in a different episode. But the nice thing, right, is that we can test each of these. Okay, so we can have a document or we can have something that we want to actually, validate the sit that we've made, and we can upload the file here and we can test it. We can get information back. Okay, so it's a really nice way to validate what you guys are doing. Okay, and it's really important. Okay, so again, the learning from this video, very short, very brief. It is episode 1, so I'm very happy that you clicked on the video and you get to kind of understand what a sit is. But when you are having conversations with your customers, or whether you're on the other end and you are a customer, right, and you're talking to people who are in the cybersecurity space or in the data security space, you now have information, baseline information in terms of what a sit is, right, what a classifier is, why it's important for DLP and labeling, and also what information matters to you. Okay, because again, there's over 328 built in, but really most departments or most customers might have 1 or 2 projects that they're looking to work on, and they're looking to lock down and understand where it's being sent. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more. As I said, there'll be a new video every Saturday.